Hi guys! Today we're diving into the psychology of childhood popularity among girls, specifically how early social dynamics around being the it girl can shape the way we form and navigate friendships in adulthood. For Black women, this story is rarely just about popularity, it's about colorism, relational power, and who got to be seen, centered, and chosen. After rewatching some episodes of The Real Housewives of Potomac, I couldn't help but notice certain behaviors from overt shade to deliberate misunderstandings, which are deeply rooted in patterns many of us first saw or experienced back in school. From girlhood to grown women, the ripple effects of being the popular one or not are real. Oop, social hierarchies and colorism are calling. Are you going to pick up the phone? Let's first dive into the psychology of the popular girl. The popular girl or crowd stems from both the basic human need for connection/inclusion and social advantages. As a popular girl, you garner attention, protection from bullying, romantic interests, invitations, and visibility. You also may be given special perks in school. This is important in childhood when one is trying to figure out their identity. Clinging to a role within the social hierarchy of a school acts as a kind of template to build on. From a young age, girls, especially Black girls, are socialized to understand that their value is tied to being liked, pleasing, or attractive. Thus, young girls internalize the idea that in order to matter, they have to be seen or be in close proximity to those who are seen/popular. So popularity represents a kind of social currency tied to how they are perceived. Now, typically, girls are not praised for being strong, assertive, or competitive in obvious ways, unlike boys. And this is not always the same for Black girls, who are often faced with and nurtured by those who either embrace or have also been faced with the strong Black woman trope. Still, Black women are not encouraged to be emotionally honest or vulnerable, so in a way their social power is usually built on image and performance, not depth. They are expected to be able to handle a lot with grace, while their feelings or experiences are not always truly considered. Hence why, in order to maintain their popularity, some girls use relational aggression, which is a kind of non-physical bullying that impacts another person's social standing. This looks like throwing shade, creating rumors, purposefully excluding people, or manipulating situations in your favor. It's controlling the narrative covertly while still staying within the social norm that affords her popularity. Now, how does this relate to colorism? Traditionally, in the Black community, proximity to whiteness affords you popularity or a higher social status. This means light-skinned Black girls are frequently placed into a different kind of social position, one where beauty and desirability are emphasized early, and where popularity is both granted and expected. Because they more closely align with Eurocentric beauty standards, light-skinned girls are often given social capital before they've earned it. They're seen as prettier, softer, or more socially valuable. This can sometimes translate to pressure to protect her spot as the popular girl or entitlement to it. So relational aggression becomes a tool and a strategy. The light-skinned popular girl may feel she has more to lose socially, and so she works to maintain control over who gets access, who gets attention, and who is a threat. The focus on her beauty at a young age and her understanding of it as her source of value could also lead to her beauty becoming her identity. She may not be encouraged to develop or express other aspects of her identity, like intellect, emotional depth, creativity, or leadership, because the world keeps rewarding her for how she looks rather than who she is. Later in life, this could lead to her sexuality being another huge aspect of her identity, as the light-skinned Black woman is preferred and thus objectified in Black media, music, and film, which could be an entire video on its own. Beauty being her identity shows up in adulthood, where she might still manage her relationships through subtle control or passive exclusion. She might also be male-centered or feel threatened by other beautiful or confident women. Furthermore, she's likely to continue her role of perfection based on being the pretty one in her relationships. So she's always composed, always curated, never too emotionally messy. In terms of her Blackness, she's also less likely than other Black women to acknowledge colorism so as to not jeopardize her status or induce discomfort. For the brown or dark-skinned Black girl, the light-skinned girl's popularity status, protection, desirability, and approval are seen as ideal. So being friends with her may offer a sense of social legitimacy or proximity to the ideal. In her desire for acceptance, she might accept a power imbalance within the friendship, which looks like ignoring microaggressions or downplaying her own beauty so as to not be seen as competition. Which is crazy because she might have been encouraged to develop other aspects of her identity outside of her beauty, unlike the light-skinned girl. and yet she's willing to minimize her light for the sake of popularity or feeling included. These behaviors follow her into adulthood as well, where she might continue to long for acceptance, be more submissive in her friendships, or overcompensating. You know, the therapist, the overgiver, the one who never asks for anything. Now, for our example of the day, we have Monique Samuels and Giselle Bryant from the Real Housewives of Potomac. Now, when I was younger, this show was a staple for me, and I remember always feeling like Monique was very real and that Giselle was simply jealous. Now, looking back on it with a new perspective, I think there's so much more to unpack. Disclaimer, I am not throwing shade or trying to disrespect either of these ladies. I'm doing my best to be objective and go based on what we've seen on television, since we obviously don't know every facet of the character. So I'm really just using them as an example for the psychology breakdown. Okay? Demonstration number 1. Now, if you're a fan of the show, you remember the first time these two met, Giselle immediately did her best to intimidate Monique. She spoke down on her appearance, questioned her manners, and if she had a home. Now, Monique clocked Giselle, and quickly too, so points to her, but I think it's good to point out that Giselle seemed to be intimidated by Monique's beauty or her presence. The other option is that she's just rude, which could be believable, except for the fact that she was also standoffish to Ashley when she was first introduced to the group. So you have Monique, who is young, beautiful, married with kids, and Ashley, who is also younger and married. Two women who Giselle might see as a threat to her as someone who is divorced and older than them. Monique standing up for herself in this moment only solidifies that she is a point of opposition in Giselle's mind. Unlike Ashley, who, if I remember correctly, had some points of contention with Robin, but then she showed herself willing to be submissive to Giselle alongside Robin. And I also think Giselle opened up to her more, like she eventually became less of a threat and more of somebody to be messy with. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going off my memory. Demonstration number 2. Throughout the seasons they worked together, Giselle constantly made it a point to question Monique's vernacular, her poise, her intelligence, and even speak down on her family. This is an example of relational aggression, as she tried to taint Monique's reputation and even manipulate situations so Monique would look crazy by gaslighting her. I think at the time Giselle and Robin tried to create a rift between Monique and Charisse by constantly telling Charisse that Monique was using her for her contacts. This behavior relates to another aspect of Giselle's personality/past that I've not talked about yet, which is her role in a sorority. In my opinion, her experience in a sorority and being popular definitely play a part in how she navigates this group. Following the trend of habits adapted in childhood or adolescence following us into adulthood, Giselle feels it's her right to haze to other women, as Karen has said before. We've also seen one of her line sisters come into the show and speak about how Giselle was mean to her initially before they became good friends. She's also used to being the leader in the clique, the popular girl, so she really only wants you around if you can fall in line, not if you can stand on your own. Demonstration number 3. Despite Giselle being rude to her, Monique went out of her way to include and be close with Giselle. For instance, when her husband surprised her with a trip for her birthday, Monique almost begged Giselle and Robin to come. This aligns with the thinking of the girls in school who wanted to be accepted by the cool girl, even if it meant suppressing their feelings or their own light. Monique could have easily stood in the fact that she had a life that some would say is easy to be jealous of. She's beautiful, married, had kids, and 5 homes, darling. No, but really. Instead of trying to appeal to Giselle, she could have stood in being her own person, which I think would have worked out better for her in terms of taking back her authority. By begging Giselle to come on the trip, she affirms the idea that Giselle is the it girl and diminishes her own social status and power in a way, following the same trends we talked about earlier. Demonstration number 4. Giselle had one emotional moment on the show, which is when she and Sherman broke up. Other than that, I don't really recall her being open and honest or emotional. During this time, Monique also invited Sherman's ex-wife around, which only increased Giselle's disdain for her. And some would argue this is the beginning of Giselle plotting to really get rid of Monique. My point is that Giselle maintained the perfect image that comes along with being the quote-unquote it girl by never opening up in this way again. And I'm sure there's more nuance to this conversation, like her past relationship trauma and just protecting her emotions, period. But her image needing to be perfect based on childhood behavior and how women have been socialized to behave definitely play a part. Demonstration number 5. The last example I'll give is when Giselle denied being a colorist and even claimed that the accusation was harmful to her children who are brown skinned. Now, there are two aspects of this conversation. One, of course, she would deny this because, as stated before, acknowledging it would be jeopardizing her status, and she would have to take accountability for her actions. On the other hand, one could give her the benefit of the doubt and argue she truly does not understand the layers and complexities of colorism and how it influences behavior. I believe both to be true in some ways, as I think she truly believes she does not treat others differently based on skin tone, so it's more of a subconscious thing for her. Either way, it doesn't take long once you observe her behavior to see that she's benefited from colorism throughout her life. From how she treats women darker than her, to how she constantly speaks of her beauty, to how she always expects to be catered to. Whether she wants to admit it or not, colorism is definitely embedded in her. Now that we've gone over the psychology behind wanting to be in the popular clique and how it follows us into adulthood, I wonder what your experience with this is. Do you carry any social skills from childhood with you today? Or do you know anybody similar to a Giselle or Monique? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day. Bye!